Today, Hendro faces one of the greatest challenges of his journey: detachment. In this story, he encounters a wise master who will guide him through the process of letting go of both material possessions and emotional attachments. Have you ever wondered how your life would be if you let go of everything that holds you back? Stay until the end to discover how this lesson can transform not only Hendro's life, but also yours. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to follow this journey of wisdom and liberation. Chapter 3: The Path of Detachment. After his transformative experience on the planet Sabadur, Hendro felt more connected to the universe and his spiritual journey. He had learned to see beyond the limitations of the mind and touched the vastness of universal wisdom. However, his heart still carried a burden. Although he knew his discoveries were profound, there was something inside him that kept him bound. An almost invisible feeling that he was still holding on to something that prevented him from fully letting go. As his lightship floated silently through space, Hendro meditated on the next step of his journey. With each stop, each new discovery, he felt closer to universal truth. But he also understood that this truth could only be fully lived if he was willing to leave behind everything that kept him tied to old patterns. It was a lesson he still needed to learn: detachment. Then, one night, while observing the stars and reflecting on his experiences, a new energy emerged in his mind. It was soft but clear, like a breeze blowing from a distant land. "You are ready to learn the path of detachment," a voice echoed in his consciousness. Hendro knew this wasn't a simple message. It was a calling. Without hesitation, he followed the trail of energy that led him to a small planet, surrounded by ethereal mists floating like waves of light. This planet, whose presence was almost invisible in the vast cosmos, was home to a legendary master. It was said that he knew the secrets of detachment, and his wisdom had freed many who, like Hendro, sought to transcend material and emotional bonds. The encounter with the master. Upon landing his ship, Hendro stepped onto a plain covered with dense yet tranquil vegetation. The air was filled with a peaceful energy, inviting him to relax and release any tension he might still carry. Ahead of him, a small stone temple emerged among the trees, simple and unadorned, but filled with a silent presence. As he approached, a figure materialized at the entrance. It was an elderly man with long white hair and a beard that nearly touched the ground. His clothes were simple, made of rough fabric, and his eyes shone with deep serenity, as if he were at peace with every aspect of existence. "Welcome, traveler," said the master, his voice soft and welcoming. "I am Kalin, guardian of the teachings of detachment. I know why you have come, Hendro. You have learned much on your journey, but there is still something that holds you back. You wish to know how to let go, how to truly be free." Hendro nodded. "Yes, master," he replied. "I feel that despite everything I have lived and understood, I still carry something within me that prevents me from fully moving forward. I need to learn to let go." Kalin smiled gently. "Detachment is a subtle art. It's not about abandoning what is important, but releasing what no longer serves the purpose of your soul. Come, let us walk." The master turned and began to walk slowly towards the temple, and Hendro followed him in silence. The first teaching: letting go of material possessions. As they entered the temple, Kalin led Hendro to a simple room where a stone table and a few cushions were the only furnishings. The master sat down and motioned for Hendro to do the same. "Before we speak of emotional detachment, we must begin with the most visible detachment: material possessions," Kalin began. "The society in which many live is built on accumulation. Accumulating goods, money, power. But what many do not realize is that by holding on to these possessions, they become prisoners. It is not the objects that own them, but the other way around." Hendro reflected on this. During his journey, he had encountered civilizations obsessed with wealth, measuring their value by what they owned. Although he had never been particularly materialistic, he understood that detachment wasn't just about physical things, but also about how we relate to them. "How can we live without possessions?" Hendro asked. "Everything we have, whether material or not, seems so deeply intertwined with who we are." Kalin looked at him kindly. "The secret is not in abandoning all things, but in not letting them define you. You can live in the world, have objects, homes, even responsibilities. But detachment happens when you realize that these things do not define you. The true self cannot be found in anything external. He stood up and gestured for Hendro to follow him outside the temple. I will show you something. Nature as the teacher. The two walked to a nearby clearing where a massive tree stood, its branches stretching towards the sky and its roots sinking deep into the earth. Keelan stopped before it and placed a hand on the trunk. Look at this tree, Hendro. It lives fully, offering shade, fruit, shelter. But it does not cling to what it gives. When the wind takes its leaves, it does not lament. When its fruit falls, it does not seek them back. It simply offers, without worrying about what is taken. This is detachment. Hendro looked at the tree, feeling the depth of the metaphor. So detachment is about giving and letting go, without the expectation of return, he said, more to himself than to the master. Exactly, Keelan replied. True freedom comes when you can offer to the world, to people, to the universe, without worrying about what you will receive in return. When you realize that nothing is truly yours, but everything is part of the eternal flow of life. Hendro remained silent for a long time, allowing Keelan's wisdom to envelop him. He knew that to fully live detachment, he would have to unlearn many of the lessons society had taught him. But at the same time, he felt a growing freedom within. The simple act of letting go was, in fact, the key to finding himself. The second teaching, emotional detachment. After hours of contemplation, Hendro and Keelan returned to the temple. There, the master asked Hendro to meditate. As he did so, a slight unease began to rise within him. He knew the next lesson would be harder. Letting go of emotions, expectations, the bonds he had created throughout his life. Keelan sat before him, observing. Now that you understand material detachment, we must go deeper, Hendro. Let us talk about emotional detachment. You have realized that external things do not define you, but what about the feelings you hold? The hurts, hopes, fears? All these emotional weights we carry throughout life? Hendro looked at the master, feeling the weight of this truth. It's difficult, master. How can we let go of something so intimate, so deeply tied to who we are? Keelan smiled softly. That is the greatest illusion, thinking that emotions are who you are. They are experiences, as fleeting as clouds in the sky. They come and go, but the sky, the space, remains unchanged. Emotional detachment happens when you allow yourself to feel without clinging. Allow the emotions to come, but also allow them to leave. The final test. Hendro knew the final test would be faced within himself. Emotional detachment wasn't something resolved by intellectual understanding alone. It was a process that needed to be lived, felt, and most importantly, integrated. He looked at Keelan, feeling the weight of what was to come, but also a sense of relief. He knew he was on the right path. I am ready, master, Hendro said, his voice filled with both determination and vulnerability. But how do I let go of something so deeply rooted? My pains, my loves, my hopes, they have often defined me. Keelan nodded with a compassionate look, as if understanding every layer of pain and attachment Hendro still carried. The first step is recognizing that these emotions are part of your experience, but not of your essence. You are not your emotions, Hendro. They are temporary, like shadows passing over a wall. The real you is what remains, observing, untouched. With a gesture, Keelan led him to an open courtyard behind the temple. There, a small garden with a calm lake awaited. In the center of the lake, a single lotus flower floated serenely. Look at the lotus flower, said the master. It grows from the mud, from the murky waters, but it blooms towards the light. Emotional detachment is similar. It's not about denying your emotions, but allowing them to exist and dissolve so that you can bloom into your true nature. The internal challenge. Keelan invited Hendro to sit comfortably near the lake, and then he himself settled beside him, starting a guided meditation. Close your eyes, Hendro, and bring to mind an emotion you carry. It could be pain, fear, or even a deep love that you feel binds you to something or someone. Let this emotion rise without resistance. Feel it fully, without judgment. Hendro closed his eyes and began to breathe deeply. Slowly, an old emotion emerged within him, a sense of loss, of mourning for everything he had left behind on his journey. He remembered his distant home, the friends and loved ones he had met throughout his travels across the universe. Though he had learned much, A part of his soul still clung to these memories, to these connections. The pain was intense, almost like an anchor pulling him down into the ocean of his emotions. He felt a wave of sadness wash over him, but instead of resisting, he followed Keelan's advice and allowed the emotion to come. He felt it fully, letting it flow through him like a current of energy. Keelan, watching closely, spoke in a soft voice. Now, imagine this emotion as a flame. It's burning within you, fed by your memories and expectations. Feel its warmth, but also realize that you have the power to blow on this flame and let it extinguish, not destroying the experience, but releasing the attachment. You can keep the learning, Hendro, but you must let go of the weight. With tears in his eyes, Hendro took a deep breath and in his mind, visualized the flame of the pain he had carried for so long. He saw how it was fed by his memories and desires, but also noticed that he no longer needed to sustain it. With a deep and intentional breath, he imagined the flame dissipating, turning into a light breeze that dissolved into the air. The moment of liberation. When the flame finally went out, Hendro felt a wave of relief wash over him. It wasn't a feeling of loss, but of lightness, as if he had finally allowed himself to release a part of himself that no longer served. He opened his eyes, still with tears, but now these tears were not of pain, but of a quiet liberation. "Did you feel it, Hendro?" Keelan asked with a gentle smile. "The emotion doesn't disappear, but your relationship with it changes. What once bound you now frees you. This is detachment." Hendro took a deep breath, feeling the weight of centuries of emotional pain and attachment begin to dissipate. He understood, in that moment, that detachment wasn't about disregarding or denying his experiences, but about ceasing to identify with them. He could honor what he had lived without being defined by it. "Yes, Master," Hendro replied, his voice calm and renewed. "I feel like I am starting to understand. The emotions still exist, but they no longer imprison me." Keelan nodded. "This is the first step. The path of detachment is continuous, and you will face new challenges along your way. But always remember, the true you is the one who observes the emotions, who sees beyond possessions and connects with the eternal flow of the universe. You are the sky, not the clouds that pass through it." The final teaching, the flow of the universe. After a long period of silent reflection, Keelan stood and invited Hendro to walk again to the lake. They stopped at its edge, where the still waters reflected the sky, calm and serene. "There is one last lesson you need to take with you, Hendro," said the master, pointing to the reflection in the lake. "Just as the water reflects what is above, the universe reflects what you vibrate. Detachment is not just about letting go of what no longer serves, but also about opening yourself to the natural flow of life. The more you release, the more the universe can flow through you." Hendro looked at the surface of the water and saw his own reflection. For a moment he realized that the image wasn't solid, but merely a temporary illusion created by the reflection. This was the nature of all things, transient, fleeting, like light on water. When you are no longer tied to possessions, whether material or emotional, you become like the water, fluid, adaptable, able to move freely through the cosmos, Keelan continued. You align with the natural flow of the universe, and it is in this state that true revelations occur. The universe is generous, Hendro, but you can only receive fully when your hands are empty. These words penetrated deeply into Hendro. He now understood that the path of detachment was the path of true freedom. Letting go of what he thought he possessed was, in fact, freeing himself to receive something much greater: wisdom, unconditional love, a deep connection with the universe. The impact of the journey. Hendro felt deep gratitude in his heart for finding Keelan. The master had not only taught him valuable lessons about detachment, but had also guided him on an inner journey that transformed his understanding of himself and the universe. He now knew that true freedom wasn't in conquering or accumulating, but in releasing and flowing. "Thank you, Master," Hendro said, his voice filled with respect and reverence. "I will carry these teachings with me for the rest of my journey. I know I will still face challenges, but now I see detachment as a continuous practice. I am ready to move forward." Keelan smiled softly. "The path of detachment is eternal, Hendro, but each step you take on it leads you to greater freedom and peace. Go now, and always remember, you are the current flowing through the universe. and nothing can bind you when you allow yourself to simply be. With these words echoing in his heart, Hendro left the small planet, carrying with him not possessions or heavy emotions, but the lightness of a spirit that had learned the art of letting go. As he looked out at the vast cosmos before him, he knew that his journey was just beginning, and that the universe still had much more to reveal. Final reflection. Just like Hendro, we often carry weights we no longer need to bear. Detachment is not about giving up everything we love, but about freeing ourselves from the chains we create. By letting go, we make space to live more authentically and fluidly. And you? What are you still holding on to that no longer serves your purpose? How would your life be if you allowed yourself to let go and trust in the flow of the universe? Leave your thoughts about detachment in the comments. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to continue following Hendro's journey. Let's discover the depths of the soul and the universe together.